All right, so the third step or third major portion of work that we're going to do tonight just did the analysis in our framework here, and we went through the kind of four different windows or layers of analysis that we can conduct. So we've got a fairly good idea about what's going on here in the poem. Now we are going to endeavor to write an analysis paragraph about what we discovered. So just to review quickly how we do that. Always start with a topic sentence that clearly states your purpose. It's also a good idea to include the author and the name of the poem. So then next, you're going to move into your component analysis, and that's essentially looking at those different windows that I was talking about, or layers, you could call them. So I like to go from simple to complex. So at the start, I would talk about the structural choices the author makes, things like rhyme scheme and beats per line. Then I'd move on to that next level, that first kind of wordplay level, which looks at alliteration, anaphora, and an assonance. Then you can go up the ladder to the next level of complexity, which is to see if there's any similes, metaphors, personification, or very kind of imagery based lines. And then finally we move up to that bigger picture, which is to talk about major themes, or the tone of voice, and finally some sort of a significant outcome or insight that you noticed in the poem. So we've done our analysis. We've got everything laid out here. We're ready to write. So we'll just make this 14-point font. In traditional APA, you would stick at 12, but just to make it a little clearer for the purpose of the video, I've upgraded it. So in the poem, a poison tree. So we're going to italicize the name of the poem. That's the standard method we're going to use for our APA parameters for these types of paragraphs. Blake was talking about the feeling of wrath and how people cope with such emotions. Excellent. Now I've also noticed that we don't have our work double spaced yet. We want to double space things for the ease of the reader. It just makes it easier to put your eyes on and read through. So there we go. We've got our topic sentence, and we're predicting that this idea, this core theme of anger or wrath is at the center of the poem. So you can kind of, because we're talking about our purpose and we know we're going to get there eventually, we could bring that thematic piece to the fore in this initial sentence. But now we're going to kind of backpedal and move through the steps of analysis that we worked through. So the first thing would be to discuss the rhyme scheme, and we've got that standard rhyming couplet scheme going from A through H, as was common with poetry from the era when he wrote. Blake utilizes, there's a nice academic word, you could add that to your academic word list. Blake utilized a rhyming couplet method, in this case A A B B C C D D E E F F G G H H. Good. Then we move to our next kind of consideration in terms of the beats per line. So you can see that what we do by setting up our framework, this framework chart for our analysis, is we've really kind of laid things out. So we know what the rhyme scheme is. We've done the work for that. We know how the beats per line are organized and how there is kind of both adherence and deviance from a central chosen number, right? So we do have a lot of the work already set up. So in terms, so just make our little editing move here as we go. In terms of beats per line, this poem does mainly follow 7 beats in a single line for the majority of the verses. So verse is just a synonym. However, there is also deviation from that pattern. Some lines are 8 beats, while others are 6. So then if we kind of just jump back, 7 8 7 8 7 7 6 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 8. Blake seemed to use longer lines to drive a point, and the single line of 6 appears to be an outlier. Just something a little bit odd, some data that's a little bit unusual. And we could actually include a citation here if we wanted to, just to kind of practice our citation methods, but also to fancy it up here. And if you're doing a discussion of something that goes through the entire poem, obviously it's lines 1 through 16. So that's how you would write that according to the APA standards that we're using. Okay, so now we've talked about the first kind of the structural aspect. Now we're going to move into the discussion of those secondary possible devices, these wordplay devices. When considering our second window of poetic devices, Blake focused on the power created by anaphora with several examples being prevalent. So then we can go Blake 1794, and then we can, let's think about some of the lines. We can just go up and find the lines that we found to have anaphora, right? We've got kind of through stanzas 1 through, or lines 1 through 4 in particular, yeah, are the ones we're going to focus on. There's a lot of kind of repetitive language there. Now here's another cue. Additionally, he injected examples of alliteration. Sunned and smiles, that's line 7, with S sounds being stacked up in line 7. As always with his poetry, Blake relied heavily on images. In this poem, we have the clear images of day and night, and the opposition of light and dark can be seen to reflect the moral question being asked here. Overall, this poem can be seen as an extended metaphor. So there we've gotten to the big kind of point here. the wrath highlighted in the core of the poem is represented metaphorically as the poison tree. By pouring his energy and tears into the tree, the author grows a poisonous apple which he uses to trap and kill his enemy through that foe's jealousy and greed. And so what you see is that by adding in our citations, we're really giving honor to the original author, and we're giving the lines as well to guide the reader back to where we got this information from. So that would be lines 9 through 16 we could put in there. And it gives a really academic feeling. To finalize, Blake is making a larger thematic statement about humanity and how we deal with our own angers and enemies. Implicit in his gory, pithy commentary is the idea that we will all get what is owed through such a self-grown pitfall. So there you go. That's an example of how to write an analysis of a poem from stage 1. You saw that we really kind of have to dig into it line by line. That's the framing part up here, the kind of analysis windows, or we could call it the analysis framing chart. There's a few different ways that I use to talk about it. And we start from simple, looking at things like rhyme scheme and the counts per line. Then we go into the more advanced wordplay elements, and then we move into those bigger thematic discussions. And when we do it in that way, we set ourselves up for a nice, robust analysis paragraph. So if we just were to push this down to the last page, you can see it's a nice chunky, well-written paragraph that uses strong transitions and kind of predicts what the reader should be trying to find from the poem. And there you go, 288. So the word count ended up being 288. And again, that lives within that sweet spot that we discussed between 200 and 330 words for this type of analytical paragraph. Okay, so I will add this to our website. So best of luck with your own analyses, and hopefully you're getting yourself ready to write some scorching hot paragraphs just like this one.